Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone it is, wherever are you in the world. It is your Lord and Saviour with a headless mannequin that a member of my family named Doris. Why? Fuck knows, but we're not here talking about that. We're here to talk about Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 with some exciting news from the Chinese room who have unveiled a bit more about the gameplay and the more social elements, the things that Vampire the Masquerade fans and fans of Bloodlines, the original one, particularly love and excited for. And this comes in the form of a tweet that the Chinese room via the Bloodlines 2 Twitter page. It's probably on their website too and other social medias, but this is where we come for all things official. And the post reads, "Our dev diary schedule continues on August 14th, which as of the recording of this was yesterday, where we'll go into details about our dialogue choice system with a look into the code we use for it. The Camarilla and Anarch diaries will follow that in the weeks ahead." So if we have another look at that little JPEG, which may look a bit blurry for you, we have August the 14th, which was yesterday, dialogue choice system. Then on the August 28th, we have the Camarilla, and then on the September the 11th, we have the Anarchs. And I just have to say, choosing 9/11 with the most destructive canine faction outside of the Sabbat is a particularly interesting choice, I have to say. I hope that was coincidental, but we'll see, depending on what they write up about the Anarch movement. Now, you would have hoped that with this announcement, there would be some form of trailer or video that we can use to accompany what we're about to read. However, if we just scroll through the post in question, just very briefly, because we will read it, first of all, it's not terribly long, and there's no videos. What a fantastic way to showcase your gameplay by not providing any fucking gameplay. Like, wowzers. I mean, I like the little whip thing they've got going on here. That's a pretty neat way of presenting that, and we've got a bit of code there. Some gamer stuff there, and there's a bit more of a description about it, which I think is probably the best way of producing that, so the average Joe can understand what's going on. That, and because there are images here, I quite like that it's made it a bit more accessible to visually impaired audiences, which I really appreciate that. So I'm hoping that will also carry on into the gameplay, but we'll have a proper that in well, right now. So we go to the top here. Dev Diary 15. It's that magic number again. 15 times the detail. Short blog post and all. Because the last time that we've looked at anything Bloodlines 2 related in an official sense, what we had was those 15 times the trailer. Those action sequences that revealed the clans, the Brujar, Tremere, and Banu Hakim, that were essentially 15 seconds long. The Banu Hakim was actually 30 seconds on if you had a look at original footage. You can go and check the playlist that will appear at the end of the video, where we'll have a look at that in great detail. And we also can play the Ventru, or the Vontru, depending on who you ask. And that didn't have a revealed trailer, that just had a GIF. So that was like a second long at best, and a blog post. The reason being is that they didn't have anything prepared for that, and they didn't want to rush things, which I can respect, that's fair enough, but come on people. Anyway, let's talk about the dialogue here and see what it has to say. The summer break is over and we're back with a juicy dev diary for you. Sarah Longform, the Chinese Room's senior narrative designer and writer, will delve into the intricacies of our dialogue systems and the thought processes behind their design for Bloodlines 2. Just a small warning, the journal delves into the inner workings of the branch dialogue code, which potentially contains minor spoilers. So that's your cue for everybody who doesn't want any spoilers to politely fuck off, no hard feelings and all. The presentation of dialogue options is different in Bloodlines 2. A lot of it stems from the Chinese Room's legacy of celebrating fully realised characterization and empowering voice actors to do more heavy lifting and explore more nuance, which I find a bit of a weird choice to show all the action first. I get it, you're wanting to try and pull in like new fans into this, and dialogue may not be so appealing for new fans who don't quite understand Vampire the Masquerade as well as people like myself and Bloodlines fans. But it would be nice if there was a bit more of a focus on there at the beginning as well, and leaving things so late into this is a bit of a weird choice, in my opinion. To give an example, when selecting the dialogue option, players should know exactly what they're opting in for. Brackets, you've all known the frustration of, but that's not what I thought that meant. But the kind of spelling out this requires precludes the ability to learn into the strengths of actors. This would also have caused problems for UI, universal interface, I believe that stands for, since fire often has more to say than can be reasonably presented on screen, especially when we're also catering to console. Ultimately, the needs of the player were integral. Players should have all the information they need about their selected option and should feel confident in their choice, while the actors allowed more playfulness in the following directive. Now seeing you're reading a dev diary, I assume that means that some game materials that we have already shared, which means you'll notice an early result of the above dilemma. We initially toyed with representing our dialogue choices in summary, to make the intention of the branch abundantly clear and lean harder into a strategic approach to roleplay, more on that shortly. However, this quickly revealed itself as the wrong direction, and not just because you guys, brackets, rightly said so. Getting into the weeds of our conversations, I found that the choices offered felt samey than viewed from above, even when the content was entirely different, zoomed too far out and you lose fine detail, which is where your flavour lives. So we've settled on a compromise, the tried and true next best thing, carefully paraphrased speech. Which, from my understanding of this, and of course I am only human and this is my whole perception of things, and I won't lie, I'm coming in with this with a slightly negative bias, this doesn't seem all that much more different to what most role-playing games in a video game sense would do when it comes to multiple dialogue choices. Now, I'm hoping it will be obviously more than Fallout 4's infamous yes, no, maybe sarcasm. But what about the content of these choices? Remember what I said about strategies? Slightly patronising, but there we go. Best way to approach the choice design is to look at your theme. In Bloodlines 1, dangerous mix comparing these two already, your options are a mixture of strategy and humanity, where other options thrown into honour, for example, your clan. The same is true in other titles. In Baldur's Gate 3, told you, choices options are themed roughly around a simplified version of the morally alignment seen in D&D. In Telltale's The Walking Dead, they are themed around the central question of, do you have to be cruel to survive? Now, comparing your game to essentially two really celebrated story-focused choice decision-making narratives, particularly Baldur's Gate 3, is so fucking dangerous. And I feel that with the success of Baldur's Gate, there's going to be a lot of publishers and developers and people like high up in the food chain who are going to be doing a lot of trying to emulate Baldur's Gate 3, trying and capture that magic as well, and I feel that a lot of that nuance of what made Baldur's Gate 3 special is going to be lost, and I feel with the action-focused gameplay that we've seen so far, trying to include that into this as well, it could be very jarring for one thing, but at the same time it may feel that more of these compromises are being met. It's a very dicey thing that you're doing here, it's particularly with Baldur's Gate 3 and The Walking Dead. They are both very story focused, and obviously the Baldur's Gate 3's got its combat, but that's more leaning into your traditional D&D fare. Bloodlines 2 isn't that. So, yes, it makes people aware the sort of, in-depthness that they're going for here, but I'm not entirely convinced that's going to happen from what I've read so far, and what we've seen so far in the gameplay and how they've presented everything thus far. VtM, Vampire the Masquerade, World of Darkness is so named for its cynical perspective, its blood-tinted glasses, if you will. Ha 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 ha, see what you did there? To be fair, that would have been a joke that I would make. Kindred are a natural extension and metaphor of that worldview. The recurring motif is typically, how can I get what I want, with little being left off the table, though with room enough for those fading echoes of humanity to cling on, or at least appear to do so. In this way, Bloodlines 1's approach of marrying strategy with morality is the ideal direction, and it's one we've chosen. So it seems that there is an understanding of what Bloodlines 1 was trying to do and how successful it was in doing that. Also, it's an understanding of what VtM is like. So it's a balance between your beast and your humanity. That old adage of a beast I am, lest a beast I become, seems to be fueling some of the design choices here. But with an elder vampire, that would be particularly interesting. And to that end, but what does that mean for the division of choice in the more concrete terms? In other words, what courses of action might an elder vampire such as Fire consider? Elder vampires being like, in 5th edition, which is what this game is going to be probably basing its narrative off, elder vampires are considered more than 250 years old of age, so you have that natural and supernatural detachment from the humanity that you once were, and also the world was a very different place when you were a human. And your upbringing and all that dictates how you cling on to that. And as we've seen from a dev diary thing already, or like one of the trailers, I don't remember which one. Fire is the sheriff of Seattle, which means they do have to be a lot more brutal with upholding the Masquerade and do a lot of killing. So there is going to be that natural, again, supernatural detachment from morals, like how cruel can you be? The first and most obvious is to lean into the status, age, potency, and power to intimidate those around them. In other contexts, this can manifest as being willing to voice the unpopular opinion and being direct about it, not beating around the bush, so to speak. After all, nobody fucks with an elder, right? It's true, but I don't think that's really answered that question all that much, personally. But what if they do? What if after a century in torpor, which is like a supernatural stasis as it is, your age is all that's going for you? Age counts for a lot, true, but being kindred is about more than what's supernaturally afforded to you, and a clever vampire will have more up their sleeve than what their abilities allow, other ways of exerting control. After all, Bloodlines without some political scheme and intrigue just wouldn't be Bloodlines, and that doesn't account for Fire's unique and, well, unfortunate circumstances. Picture, if you will, the eyes looking to the side emoji. So basically that's hinting that there's some other tactics and powers and political fuckery that Fire can employ here. Although from what we've seen, I feel that's more leaning into whatever the fuck is going on in her head with Fabian, that Thin Blood. I have some theories about that. I feel there's a lot more Thin Blood alchemy going on with the Elder, which is like breaking the continuity a bit. But again, this sort of write-up here does address, and it's trying to highlight what Bloodlines did well, which is more the social narrative stuff. But it's also an acknowledgement of that the team at the Chinese Room do seem to understand Vampire the Masquerade and what makes it different from other TTRPGs, that it's not very combat focused. A lot of it's very political and scheming and like trying to get one up over somebody, and this next bit goes into that a bit more. Throwing your weight around isn't always the best option, especially in a world overrun with big egos and at least 13 different species of narcissists. There are 13 clans, that's what that's referring to. Sometimes the best way to deal with someone is to let them take the W. For now. Stroke their pride, affirm their delusions, whispered honeyed lies, and fall under the radar of capability. Become the listening ear, the comforting shoulder, the trusted disciple. Such a strategy can take you far, assuming your victim buys it. Again, it's more acknowledgement of the political and the social dynamic of VTM, and it's such a shame that this is how they're showcasing this through this written blog, because anybody can like throw all these big fancied words around and exercise their literature degree. But seeing this in action would make this a lot more believable to buy into, you know, just to paraphrase that last sentence. Two ways to play the games, two extremes. So what occupies the middle ground? A shrewd kindred, which is the in-game world for Vampire, may know better than to bet it all on big play. Knowledge is power. Both others acknowledge of you and your knowledge of them. Better sometimes to remain a mystery, to let others show you their hand. Perhaps you achieve this straightforwardly, by responding to the questions with more questions, or indirectly by choosing words that might provoke a reply, a telling outburst, by scooting back from the table, flipping the board, and laying the game bare. If social navigation among kindred is a careful masquerade, what happens when you rip off another's mask and expose the subtext, say with perspective observations? Of course, your options are not always strictly limited to these three approaches. We haven't forgotten about clan-specific options, for instance, which is good to know because it does seem that clan does play a bit more into these dialogue options, and how each manifest will not be uniform. You may also be sitting wondering where humanity factors in. The beauty of this system lies in subjective interpretation, both by you and others. Unless clearly indicated, we will never assume that the intent of your choice is on your behalf. Perhaps you're buttering up Lou Graham, as your treachery would go unnoticed. But perhaps you genuinely admire her. I mean, I've seen lots of admiration for her her. Perhaps you wanted to make sure the young prince understands the hierarchy so they wouldn't mess with your plans. Or perhaps they would simply get in on your nerves. Strategy or sincerity, that much is up to you. But of course that won't stop the other characters having their own interpretation. Conversations are not an exception to gameplay, but an expression of it. And if gameplay is a test of skill, conversations are a test of emotional intelligence. To that end, each of our characters in Bloodlines 2 have their own preferences and biases rooted firmly in who they are and what drives them, which, combined with your choices, determines and flavours their options of you. This is a little more in-depth than like or dislike. To give a few simplistic and unrepresentative examples, no spoilers, perhaps the compliment that is so pleased the Primogen came across as sarcasm to the Thin Blood. A Primogen is a elder vampire who is a representative of a particular clan, like a Nosferatu Primogen Primogen, a Toreador Primogen. The thin-blooded is somebody that is a vampire that is generations 14 and 16 removed from Cain, which is basically, if you think the biblical Cain is like an orange, right? Run with me for this a little bit. And every time you squeeze that orange, you still get that orange juice, but each time you like add water to it, it becomes more dilute. So the second generation is like that initial squeeze, the third generation, the antediluvians, and then so on and so forth, until you get like a glass of water that is basically orange flavored water. These are the thin-blooded, and the thin-blooded don't have the full capabilities of the vampires, but they do have their own perks. In 5th edition, some can walk about in the sunlight, but they also have their own flaws, like some didn't develop their fangs, so they have to extract their blood through other means. Perhaps to the Bruja, your bullying was a blush of life. Blush of life, in the vampiric sense, is rousing the supernatural blood to appear more human. So you see, reactions to your choices are not uniform, but unique to the NPC and their unique disposition, and you'll have to put in some work into figuring out what makes them tick. Which is all fine and dandy, because again, this is acknowledging the social dynamic of VTM, and it's never going to truly capture that truly improvisatory sort of nature and conversation between player and storyteller, which is like the World of Darkness and Vampire the Masquerade term for Games Master. But at the end of the day, with a video game, it is going to be pretty binary. That you're going to say things, and as you'll see in a moment, actually I can show you this now, you have these shots of Lou Graham, who has, by the way, had quite the glow up from those initial announcements, and if consoles and PC can generate her looking this fine, then I will be truly impressed. But these could just be artificially rendered just to make it look fancy. I don't want to like throw that shade, but it's possible. But looking at this screenshot itself, you've got a very much different tales. Lou was irritated by that, and Lou was pleased by that, and you've got different dialogue choices here. Well, there's no need for sarcasm, and it's in part thanks to you. So obviously they're different combinations of dialogue options that can get these different results, and you have this whip that you've seen already, that how the code works. Apologies for the lapping, you've got my dog drinking out of her water bottle there. Above is a screenshot from our inky editor showing how player choice influences perception of relationship in aggregate. In the top choice, Fire protests Lou's intrusion on a private meeting. If Lou is not used to this behaviour from Fire, she would be slightly taken aback, responding with, "Someone's touchy tonight," before rejoining the branch that everyone else who took this option will see. "My child, I have no secrets, do we, darling?" Regardless, choosing this option will adversely affect Lou's opinion of Fire, indicated by Lou dislikes that, which over time can layer with her perception that Fire is a bully, an empath or sage, brackets RF unimpressed, represents the nature of her displeasure, which feeds the UI players will see, which we've had to look at already. In the second, softer choice option, Welcome, Lou's interpretation of Fire's response is again distorted by her existing perception of who Fire is, which in turn affects whether her opinion of Fire goes up or down, which implies here that that this seems to me like an initial reaction with Fire, with Lou, or maybe it's another meeting, and things have happened in this bit of the game prior to this. Perhaps, so you've spoken to her already, or you haven't spoken to her, and you say different things or whatever. So it appears to be fairly nuanced. But again, it would be nice to actually have some gameplay to supplement this, so we can see this in action with like maybe the same developer or somebody else talking about how this actually works a bit more, because that would be really awesome. If she's used to you being aggressive, but here you choose the softer route, she'll assume you're being sarcastic and become annoyed, lowering her opinion. After all, Flu is fluent in sarcasm, so it's no stretch that she would project this into others. However, if you're not usually aggressive, then she'll take at your word and respond favourably, with her opinion rising in tandem. In this branch, there's no merge. Players will either see, well, there's no need for sarcasm, or, and that's in part thanks to you. So again, it seems that there's a lot of variation here, and as I keep saying, it would be nice if there was some gameplay that could show this. Maybe just spoil things a bit more, like, okay, these interactions lead to this response. In this scenario, Fire has done X, Y, and Z, and she's now going to do A, B, and C, and then she's going to interact this way. And it was you'll be a bit long-winded, but we can actually see this in action and find out a bit more about the gameplay. That, and we've had lots of loot in this scenario, like responding these sort of ways as well. I get that they don't want to reveal everything, and I can respect that. But as I said in a recent walk and talk vlog that I did, this doesn't inspire confidence because they're showing us the same things. And then we come down a little bit more, but this is also clumative. If you have always come across as weak, for better or worse, sudden strength could have its own unique response. The same goes if you have a reputation for directness or for keeping your cards close to your chest. Things like your clan and the details of your legend colour, how others see of you, as well as the colour of the lens through in which they filter the reality. But so do your actions over time. And let's not forget context and situational factors. What worked once won't necessarily work every time. We don't want you to get complacent, picking options transactionally to fill up some bar or progress some metric. We want you thinking and engaging from moment to moment, as Kindred would. So yeah, this seems it's going to be potentially a very deep system, but for the fourth or third time now, we would like to see some gameplay, please. Like, it's really cool that they've shown, like, some of the code and how this works, and how they've described it, and some, like, pleasing and flattering shots of Lou here, reflecting in different ways. I like the one with the irritated one, because it just shows a bit, what are you up to sort of thing. Like, there's a lot in that facial expression, I have to say. And of course, her being an elder, she wouldn't show that much expression. I mean, you could say there's like a slight smile there, so maybe I'm being a bit paniticky with this here, but it'd be nice if there was just a bit more dynamism, you know, to show off here rather than mainly changing in dialogue here. But yeah, that's basically the game dev diary thing. And I've just noticed here, actually, on this second screenshot, not the one that we have on Twitter, but the one that's after the Anarchs, on the 25th of September, is world building. So that would be interesting to see, because, you know, Vampire the Masquerade is known for its lore, its metaplot, and its world building. So I'm curious to see how that's going to have an effect with Seattle and what it's going to be pulling from the 5th edition setting. Because there's a lot of interesting things with that. There's a lot of things I don't like, as I've talked about before. But when I first read this yesterday, I wasn't all too impressed by this, because it just seemed like a lot of fluff. Having a second read over now, it does show promise. And I still stand by that opinion that a lot of it is very descriptive and emotive to try and get the reader engaged. I mean, it's quite clear that Sarah Longform knows how to use the English language, but it doesn't. But there's no gameplay. Like, I want to see a bit of footage to supplement this, even if it's just like a short few minutes of saying what I described earlier on. That would have been great, but it's a real missed opportunity here, to be honest. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think that what we've seen so far is enough to get you excited for Bloodlines 2? And don't ask about the date, it's coming in the fall. But if I was to give my predictions on it, I would be guessing it's going to be November. Because to have these like dev diaries on the actual social structure of the game so late into its release, doing it on October, which is like literally a few days after the last world building one, would be fucking bizarre. And I don't think they would do anything post-release. I would suggest November, because that's the 20th anniversary of the original Bloodlines, and that'd probably be a way to get a lot of hype that way. But yeah, let's give me your theories, comments, and everything else in the description below. And keep it clean, you know, let's not be too aggressive about things here. And if you like what I do, give this video a like and subscribe, share it with everybody who would enjoy what you're doing. And if you want more TTRPG goodness in your life, I'm going to link a load of Vampire the Masquerade books in the description below. And if you purchase them with those links, I get some of the money back, because I'm an affiliate on DriveThruRPG, so I can provide more exciting content like this. It would be nice to be able to purchase this on PC and give it a go. And I'm going to be a bit skeptical and think that they're not going to give me a developer code for, not a developer code, a review code for this. So if they don't do that, I'd have to buy it, and I would need some financial backing, as it were, and anything you can give me towards that would be fantastic. Otherwise, that's not a problem. I can understand it, times are hard and all that. Just like, share, subscribe with everybody who loves what I do and what you love what I do, and that helps as well. And I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.